the morning news. News Talk 1280 KIT. Lance Tormey on vacation. Glad to have Richard Miller in the studio with me all this week long. Richard, I always enjoy you, man. I don't know. There's just something about you that just brings out the hazel in my eyes, sir. I don't know what it is.
I'm feeling very uncomfortable right now. Yes.
Awkward? Okay, good. Mission accomplished.
Good thing you're over there.
Over there. Look, let's not bring World War I into it. Okay. Matt Manweller is an incumbent, as we say in the biz. I believe 2 or 3 terms. We'll find out. He is running once again in the 13th District, professor at Central Washington University, and a true conservative. He is on the phone with us to defend himself. No, to talk about his race and the campaign. Mr. Manweller, how are you, sir? Good to have you on the show.
Well, doing good. I was actually enjoying your back and forth about World War I, so, but I guess I'll do the interview, but that was pretty entertaining.
All right. Well, thanks. Hey, what is this? Is this going to be you're seeking a 3rd term or 4th?
Fourth, yeah. So okay. I was elected in 2012, and I've served 3 terms, and this will be my 4th. So, yeah.
For those folks who, just a corner of our, I think you do. Personally, I think you do a great job, and your work benefits all in Eastern Washington, but there is not a whole lot of our county in your district, but there is a corner. So maybe not everybody is familiar with you as they might be with a Norm Johnson or some of those others. So give us the family, personal bio kind of thing, Matt, if you would, just to let folks know who you are.
Sure. I have an economics degree from Whitman College out in Walla Walla, and I teach at Central as a professor, probably the only conservative professor within about 300 miles of this place. And I'm married to my wife, Shelley. We have 2 children, Lincoln and Grayson, and we live on 5 acres and chop wood in the winter and garden in the summer.
Kid named Lincoln, chop wood. Oh, I see a trend here.
Yeah, absolutely. We decided to move out of the suburbs into some land. We just thought it was better for kids to be raised in a place where they had chores. So, mission accomplished.
Farm kid myself, I agree with you 100%, sir, 100%. Yeah. All right, so you have the perspective of having been there that maybe your opponents don't have. As a result, and you aren't afraid to tell it as you see it. It's one of the things I think that we like and respect about you is you don't play swamp games. If there's an issue, you speak about it and you put it out there. So let's take a look as we come out of this last legislative session with the prospect of wanting to go back. Some people might say, Matt, really? You want to go back into the to the viper's nest? But how do you assess the current legislature, how they've done, and what the prospects are moving forward?
Well, obviously, I wish there was a little bit more balance. For about my first 4 years, we had divided government where Republicans controlled the Senate and Democrats controlled the House and the governorship. But at least we had compromise. In the last 2 years, politics in Washington State has become very Seattle-centric. Not only did Democrats control all 3 branches of government, but the Democratic caucuses are dominated by Seattle because that's most of where their members come from. And so you started to see these bizarre policies, that vehicle mile travel taxes and $15 minimum wages and a head tax in Seattle, a soda tax, a capital gains tax, a carbon tax, an income tax, right? I mean, they literally don't run out of ideas when it comes to thinking of new ways to tax people. And, we're hoping that flips back. We're only 1 vote away in either the House or the Senate. So we only need to pick up 1 seat in 1 body, and we can go back to having a little bit of balance. And that's one of the main reasons I'm running again, is that I want to go back to Olympia when we have a little bit more of a seat at the table.
Yeah, couldn't blame you. I mean, you've got nothing would be more frustrating, I think, than being someone with ideas and energy and effort and vision, and then basically being told to sit in the corner because we got this, right?
Yeah, and that happens a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. McCleary decision, education. We were talking to other candidates in other races, 15th, 14th, and some of them so far have been talking about the state's education situation as a person in higher ed and who was there through the meat of the McCleary. How do you see education now in Washington?
Well, I think that some of the outcome was good, really didn't like the process. If we could round up more money for education that allows us to retain better teachers and help some of our special ed kids and, things like that. But I really don't like the path we went down where the Supreme Court was dictating policy. I think it flies in the face of our separation of powers and the system of government that we've set up in this country and in this state. And, once you do it once, what's going to prevent you from doing it again? And so the outcome was okay. The way we got there, I think, set a very dangerous precedent. And, quite frankly, I would have liked to have seen more of that McCleary money go into vocational education. There just seems to be this continuing over-reliant vision on every kid has to go into AP classes, every kid has to go to college, every kid has to get a degree. I don't believe that. I'm a professor, and I don't believe that. I would have liked to have seen a lot more of that $8 billion go to developing vocational education programs and letting kids know that developing a trade and a skill with your hand is just as important as getting a sociology degree.
Yeah, no kidding. And in the future, might be even more so. Quick education question. In terms of the Janus decision, do you see, two questions off of that. One, the governor has not yet really made clear what's going to happen with people that don't want to be in unions in state government. And the other is, do you see the strength and influence of the WEA changing much with teachers being able to opt out?
Yeah, I do. I think the Janus decision is going to fundamentally change politics in Washington. For decades, these powerful unions could go right into your paycheck and take money out of it without your permission, and those days are over. It turns out that if you have to ask people for their money, they're a lot less likely to give it to you than when you can just take it without their permission. And so I envision that the WEA and a lot of these powerful unions that write the laws in Olympia are going to have less money. And when they have less money, they're going to have less influence. And I think this is going to pay long-term dividends to bringing a lot of more reasonable policy back to Washington State. I'm excited about the Janus decision. It's been 30 years in coming.
Yeah, I certainly hope you're right. What about for state employees? I know that one of the other representatives has sent some sound bites to us as he continues. I can't think of the guy's name. Schossler, maybe, is that?
Oh yeah, Mark Schessler.
Schessler, yeah, and he is saying, "Hey, let's hear from you, Governor Inslee. How are we going to be accommodating those people in Washington State?" Any thoughts or comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anybody in Washington state government that's going to try to help comply with the Janus decision. They're going to fight that decision tooth and nail. The only way the Janus decision is going to be implemented here is if people like the Freedom Foundation and individual members go into the lower courts and force them to do it. But Governor Inslee and the Democrats are not going to willingly give away $30-40 million in union dues unless, a court drags them kicking and screaming to a contempt citation. So we're going to have to fight for its implementation. It's just not going to happen because 9 black-robed justices 3,000 miles away wrote a piece of paper.
Gotcha.
Matt, it's got to be difficult going to work every day knowing you're outnumbered. And, sometimes to make myself feel better, I love living in Eastern Washington. And frankly, if I'm going to live in Washington, it's going to have to be Eastern Washington. But, I make myself feel better by saying, well, at least I don't live in California. So that's how but it's got to be difficult. But there's an issue, a big issue that all the candidates are commenting about that. It probably could be politicized, but I don't see it as a Democrat or Republican issue, and that's mental health. And mental health is important because the way we handle it is affecting a couple of other big issues: the prospect of gun rights or gun control, and also homelessness. So, yes. If mental illness is feeding these problems, if you believe that, and you also think that we're botching it somehow, taking Western Washington State Hospital as an example, what is the solution to the
well,
mental health.
First of all, I think you've hit the nail right on the head. I mean, we have been saying for a long time that that there's a mental health problem behind our gun violence problem, behind our school shootings, behind our homelessness problems, and I think we're got to the point where there's consensus that that is true. What we were flabbergasted about was that we put together a bipartisan bill to reform Western State Hospital, to add money, to add oversight, and for some reason the governor vetoed it, and then after he vetoed it, the federal government decertified one of our two major mental health hospitals, and we've lost all of our federal funding. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Seattle Times, but to their credit, they called out the governor on that and said, look, we criticized you when you vetoed the bill, and now we're doubly upset because we've just lost all of our certification and federal funding for one of our two major mental health hospitals, and we don't understand, but I suspect that given that the feds have stepped in and, basically taken a club to us, that you're going to see another bill. We'll probably reintroduce the same bill. It'll probably pass with bipartisan majorities again. And now that the governor is probably thinking about running for president, he'll probably sign it, especially since he got taken to the woodshed by the Seattle Times. But it shouldn't have had to happen that way. We had a good bill, we had a good solution, and it should never have had to come about this way. But it's very unfortunate.
Matt, the people that know you, right? I don't know. I can't remember how close any of your last races were, but I think that you've won them fairly handily, haven't you?
Yeah, about 68%.
Yeah. So you may be speaking, especially with our audience, to the choir, but you're in the elevator, you're in there with Richard and Dave, and I don't wish that on anybody, quite frankly. But here we all are, and we say, hey, aren't you that Manweller guy? Tell us why we should vote for you. And you would say what?
I would say I'm going to focus on three things if I go back to Olympia: improving and increasing our vocational education opportunities. I'm going to fight against the income tax and the carbon tax, and I'm going to do what I can to promote school safety while respecting your Second Amendment rights. Did I get it in 15 seconds?
You did.
Did we go one or two floors on that?
No, we got right to the ground floor where we were headed. Representative Matt Manweller, thank you for your time, sir. No, this is, like we said, this isn't your first rodeo. You know what you're doing. You've represented the region well. We are going to meet and chat with some of the folks that want to sit in your seat. And in the event that you come out on the top two, we look forward to having you back here and visit again a little later on in the campaign season.
Count on it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Representative Matt Manweller from Ellensburg.